Welcome to this episode of Safe Home Podcast for struggling teens and their families finding their healing path. I'm Beth Syverson, a mom of an 18-year-old son, Joey, who's been dealing with drug addiction, depression, anxiety, and suicidal ideation for several years. I'm walking beside him as he struggles with his recovery while I work on my own personal growth and healing. I'm very happy to be chatting with a longtime friend, someone who's helped me and my family quite a bit over the years. Andy Bryce is one of 26 remaining Founding EFT Masters in the world. EFT stands for Emotional Freedom Techniques, but it's probably better known as tapping, which combines psychology and acupuncture. Andy worked as a family counselor for the government of British Columbia for 10 years with teenagers in care, similar to my beloved son. He has been coaching individuals, couples, and families for over 20 years. And he combines his heart, humor, and sensitive listening skills to provide a safe environment for his clients to release the emotional baggage that they often have been carrying since they were a young child. Andy works with a range of skills and techniques that are designed to empower his clients to release the past and give them the tools to deal with any issues they may face in the future. Andy taught me about EFT in 2015, and as my EFT practitioner, he has helped me get clarity and peace in some really difficult situations since then. He's also worked with Joey a few times too. Andy is an intuitive and empathic healer, and he's one of the few people in my life who make me feel completely heard. Andy is originally from Vancouver, but he now lives near Liverpool in England. And through the remarkable technology of Zoom, which we love and we hate, but in this case, it enables us to connect across the globe. And so welcome to Safe Home, Andy. I'm so glad you're here with us.
Oh, thank you. I'm very pleased to be here and to see you and hear you again.
Yeah, it feels like we're right next door. It's amazing. Well, first, I bet there's a lot of people that don't know what EFT is or when it started, how it began, and you are one of the founding members. So could you tell us how that story started for you?
Well, actually, it started with a Dr. Roger Callahan in the late 80s, early 90s, who was studying acupuncture. He was a psychologist, and he had a specific experience with a client where he just tried tapping on a point that he'd learned, and in a very few minutes, something that he'd been working with her on for 2 years shifted in how she felt about it, and it was a fear of water, and she got up and went to the swimming pool, which she had refused to do for 2 years. Wow. So he thought something here, and he developed it so that we just lightly tap on certain points of the body, which correspond to the endpoints of acupuncture meridians, which we can track electronically or electrically because we can measure the level of resistance in the skin. You know, Western medicine was built on cutting open dead bodies. Yeah. And Eastern medicine was built on understanding how the body worked while it was living. And so it's sort of like if you were trying to work on a car's electrical system and you didn't have the battery in, you wouldn't be able to trace anything. So what we've got is a map of how energy and electrical energy that every cell needs, every organ needs in the body. We have a map that's a couple thousand years old, and what we're doing is when someone is upset, it makes you feel often nauseous. Like if you're afraid of something, you get nauseous, tight, sweaty. Emotions come up, and we fight them and we resist them. We have thoughts that can escalate, get scarier and scarier or more upset. And what I've found is just using it day to day and moment to moment when you have an emotional wave, because they do come in waves, you can just tap and notice it. And it would be like going to the beach and a big wave is coming in and you either let it hit you or you dive into it.
Yes.
If you know tapping and you do that when you feel something coming up, it's like you just dive through the wave and the emotion passes through.
That's one of the most important things you've taught me is that nothing stays forever. And if you can just stick with it instead of running the other direction or, I've always used, I used to repress my emotions and not feel them. I would not want to go into that wave. That would be terrifying. But you have to. You have to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think when you resist and suppress or repress an emotion, you engage with it, and it can make you sick.
Mm-hmm.
But it also it's like pressing the restart button. You just keep doing it over and over.
Yeah, it's like Groundhog Day. You have to start.
Yes.
Do it again the next time a situation like that comes up. There you are again. So just pressing through. And I noticed I didn't mention your website, but your website is called tappingthrough.com, right?
Yeah.
And is that what that means? Tapping through?
It's exactly, because people go, oh, we'll just tap around this, or we'll just avoid it or whatever. But tapping through means, when a wave of emotion comes up, it's only going to last 90 seconds to 2 minutes. Unless you get caught up in it and you get more angry or you get more sad, or so if you realize that you have a choice, because most of us don't. Most of us have been raised in families where emotion is feared or resented. If you're going to do that, go to your room, or
I don't want to see that.
Or I'll give you something to cry about. That kind of thing.
Right. So were you into this kind of alternative stuff when, 28 years ago when you started this? Were you looking for something different?
Well, I had I guess an epiphany. I had a car accident when I was 32, and that's 40 years ago now. And I rolled a car into a ditch, and it took me all night to get out. And I thought for a while I wasn't going to. And from that point, I started working on the question, why did I survive? Why am I here? And so I started looking at pretty esoteric stuff, philosophical journey, but also as a healer and working with individuals. Then it was after that I started working with the government. And I had various initiations by like a Reiki master, and I am a Reiki master, and in the Filipino psychic surgery tradition. I tried lots of stuff.
Wow.
But and then in the 90s I studied emotional intelligence, which is kind of thinking about feeling. And then in 2000 someone phoned me and said, you got to try this, because I had a pain in my neck, an injury for 7 years. Nothing could be done. And almost overnight, half of it went in the first time I did tapping, but and in a very short time, I was pain-free, and I've been pain-free for 22 years now.
Wow.
So it got my attention.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And it was. Two things I realized. One, it works. It looks weird and maybe it's different, but it works. And it doesn't matter whether you believe it will work or not, because I had no idea. And two, I could share it. I could put it in people's hands. This is something you can do for yourself. It has no medical application. I mean, it's got no medical side effects.
Nothing bad can happen to
drug.
You. Right.
Yeah.
It's not a it doesn't mess with your brain. It doesn't put you in an altered state at all. It's just helps you to regulate.
Yeah, it feels like when people tap for a few minutes, they become calm and alert, which is probably the most effective way of being mindful, being present.
Yeah. One of the things that I love about EFT is that you can do it with a practitioner, like I've done with you many times, and it just magnifies whatever therapeutic effect the talking part does. It helps you to get out of your own head. It helps calm you down so you're able to access stuff that you're trying to work through. But you can also work on it on your own, and you can just, I hope this doesn't offend you, but you can literally look at the picture on the internet of the points and start tapping, and it makes you feel better, right?
It does. It does. Yes.
It's not some complicated thing. It's just
Yeah, I think that was part of the thing is Gary Craig wanted to make it simple so it was accessible by anyone and everyone. And I've had tremendous success with 12-year-olds. One of my students is retired now, but she was a teacher of elementary school kids in Canada. And for 12 years, she offered tapping to her students from 6 to 10, depending on the year that she was working with. And after a couple of years of people going, "What's that?" Other teachers were coming to her for help. People were asking to have their children in her classes. Kids were performing, from changing from being a problem to enjoying school.
wow.
So we have, 12 years of evidence there, and now it's starting to be studied and much more evidence to support it. But
That's pretty amazing. And so kids can do it, like little kids can do it. If you just teach them where the couple of points are and just maybe do it with them a couple of times, that they can have this tool with them forever that they can access when they're feeling anxious. If a kid is, aware enough to go, "Oh, I'm feeling anxious," but maybe that's not practical. But it definitely, for our teenagers, this is definitely something they can use. Yeah.
yeah, I think turning it into a game with an infant or a toddler or something, you can use that, and it's definitely worthwhile. A little tapping game, but just in the past year, I've had 3 teenagers, and one 17, 18, and 12. Well, he wasn't quite a teenager,
Close
but
enough.
the 12-year-old boy had anxiety and panic attacks. And in 5 half-hour sessions, he told me, I know what it feels like when it's coming, and I have a choice.
Nice.
And I tap, and it goes away. And so he could apply it to anything that triggered the familiar feelings that were coming. And he could just go, "Oh, well, look what I'm doing. I'm doing anxiety. I'm doing panic. I don't have to." That was just thrilling for me.
Wow, what a gift for that kid. He's 12, so now he'll go through adolescence having this amazing tool. I mean, you've saved his life, basically.
Well,
Honestly.
it changed it for sure.
Oh my gosh.
And his sister was having anxiety around being bullied at school, and performance anxiety for exams and that kind of thing. And so she benefited so much. She told one of her friends, and so it's like word of mouth. I don't really advertise much at all. So that the second one just came, and I usually do sets of 6, and with kids I try to keep it short, not like an hour or more. It's just keep their attention, give them what they need, and so this young lady was paralyzed with her driver training.
Oh, yeah.
And
that would have been me when I was a kid. Oh, yeah. I was so scared.
And her exams, and just the pressure of being a teenager, and so she is doing so well. She said she's entering university in nursing in the fall, and she said, "I may need you then.
Yeah.
And I'm good now." And she got her mom told me she got her driver's passed the test. So,
nice.
that was good.
That's so
That's
great.
evidence there.
it's such a great tool, and I think it's a particularly great tool for kids, and they can use it. You taught me some ways you can use it on your hands. It's very,
Yeah.
you don't have to do it always on your face. That's kind of where
Hmm.
it's typically used, right? Your face and your collarbone and things like that. But
Yeah,
there's,
these are the main points here, like this, and it's quite obvious. And
yeah,
what the kids I was teaching, that's one of the first things is there's a point on the side of outside of your nail of your thumb, and you can bend that over and then tap,
yeah.
and we can be tapping like this, or as you're just doing on the sides of your
Mm-hmm.
fingernails, but like this, and you could be in an exam room or an interview or on Zoom,
Yeah.
and nobody has to know that you have anything going on.
Yeah. It's a great tool. I love it. Would you be willing to do a little mini session with me so people
I
can
would,
see how it works?
yeah. I think just one of the benefits too that we're talking about how it would benefit the children, the teenagers, but also being a parent, and my daughter's in her 40s now, but I still worry, and only appropriately.
Yeah.
And I had a stepson who I still have,
Mm-hmm.
but he was hooked on crack for 5 years,
Mm.
and I went through a lot of emotional stuff before I had tapping, and now I
Oh,
know. I mean, that was he's in his 40s as well, so this was from like 18 to 25
yeah.
at his time. So, but he's clean and sober, and that's good
Yay.
news.
Yay. Thank goodness. Thank goodness. Yeah. So the
But
parents,
sorry, I just
oof.
wanted to finish that
Hmm.
for the parents. Yes, for the
Yes.
parents, this is when we're confused, fearful, anxious, angry. Because you could be so angry that you're doing this, and then you're distancing creating
Mm-hmm.
distance. So
Mm-hmm.
when we panic, our focus narrows down, and all we can see is the problem.
Yes.
And if we have something like this that can calm us down, we can expand our field of thought,
Mm-hmm.
and I think of it as peripheral thinking.
Mm-hmm.
So you have peripheral vision, but when you're
Mm-hmm.
calm, more options show up, and you can see choices rather than this is terrible, terrible, terrible.
Yeah.
And
And I get into the point where this is the only outcome that can possibly happen. Usually imagines him being dead.
yeah,
I just go right there. Oh my God, he's going to die. And,
hmm
but yeah, if I can calm myself down, EFT, or sometimes I use breathing techniques, there's a million grounding techniques, but
hmm
then you're like, okay, well, he might die, but more likely he'll just have a lot of struggle and figure it out. And
yeah. My example is that my step son is well and alive today, and
mm-hmm.
doesn't do any of those things that he did. Um, but then there are other stories as well that are not.
Right. Yeah. It could. Yeah. I've had to really come to terms with, yeah, he might die. Like literally
Hmm.
that I will feel like I am dying, but I, in fact, will not die if my son dies. He's
Yeah.
a separate individual, and that's some work I've been doing in the last couple of months. But oh God, I
Well,
hope
I
he does.
call that awfulizing.
Yeah.
We awfulize things, and it's just like we go to the extreme,
Mm-hmm.
and then we criticize ourselves for why would I think of that for someone I love, and it's not the thing you wish for them,
Right.
but it is tied to the love you have and the loss you will feel,
Mm-hmm.
and we start to uh, you know make some future event here.
Yeah.
So you're having an experience as if he died,
Yeah.
just because you had a thought, oh, he could die, and then you go,
Right. Then you're there. So why do we put ourselves there? That's the thing we're trying to avoid is what we are putting ourselves into.
mm-hmm,
You always say what you resist persists. That's one of
True.
your mantras, right? So if you're
Yeah.
constantly thinking, I don't want him to die, I don't want him to die, I don't want him to die, then I'm just thinking about him dying all the time. It's
Yeah.
like,
And so, yeah, I think we do this because it's the worst thing we can imagine,
mm-hmm,
and our unconscious mind triggers this kind of thing, and our bodies don't know the difference between an imagined event
mm-hmm,
and the real thing.
mm-hmm,
So you're actually having, as best you can imagine, what you would have if that thing happened.
mm-hmm.
So this is where the integrating it into your life, like when you start, like we'll call him Joe, started to feel like was having these thoughts. This isn't gonna work, and then he would go, okay, wait a minute, and he could do a little emotional first aid.
Yeah, that's a great way to term it, emotional first aid. That's excellent. Before it gets to be a gash, a giant wound, put emotional first aid, put a Band-Aid on that.
Yeah, it is a Band-Aid.
Yeah, emotional Band-Aid. Before it explodes into something bigger, just pull it in.
Yeah, and it's worse for people who are artists and creative and with wonderful imaginations, because you can make it so real, and then your body is going nauseous and sweating and tense, and that's what happens to people with phobias. If you fear of flying, I've worked with so many people to be free of the physical experience. They still have a thought, planes crash.
Yeah.
But they don't have the physical reaction to that.
Oh, that's great. That's great.
So, and after a while, you don't really think about it. I get emails from people saying, thanks, I'm in New Zealand, or thanks, I'm in Hawaii, and I never would have got here.
Wow. Yeah, New Zealand, that's a big, long flight. Ooh, that'd be tough for someone that's afraid of flying to be on a plane to New Zealand.
Oh, yeah.
Wow. Wow. Well, what should we work on? I have, a plethora of things to work on.
Well, let's do something that we'll have a limited amount of time, but something that's relevant, and you'll get something out of, and people will be able to see what we do. And so, what pops up?
Well, Joey is recently homeless. So that's kind of big. He moved up to Oregon with some friends, and they're just living in a van. So I've got well, yeah, it's a home, I guess, a van, but it's very unstable. There's a lot of worry. There's a lot of, oh my God. And then there's the guilt. Oh my God, my kid is homeless. Why am I not helping him? But I literally am helping him by not helping him.
Yeah. So. A Motel 6 is probably not going to be helping them if you book a room for them. So when you think of Joey being homeless, basically we're going to have three areas. We're going to have thoughts. What do you think? What emotions come up when that topic? And how is it in your body? If you're upset, how do you know? So that's where I'll be asking is, we have this idea, Joey is homeless. If you were to rate that, how upset you would be on a scale of 0 to 10, 10 being the most, how would that be right now?
That's like a 7 or an 8.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what would you say that emotion is?
It's mostly fear, a little guilt, a little anger. Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's an interesting thing, because quite often when we're tapping with something, we'll have more than one facet to it, and we can have more than one emotion about it. And so we have to be aware that we could have gotten rid of the grief, but we're still angry about it. And then physically, how do you know it's a 7 or an 8? What makes it? Is there a clue?
It's hard for me to sit still. I don't know if I'm trying to hold myself still in this interview. I get really kind of jittery. It's hard to sleep, mind racing, that kind of thing. A little tightness
Okay.
in my chest.
Is it like harder to breathe? You get shallower breaths, or
Just feeling constricted, feeling.
okay. But you don't notice like it in the volume of breath, or it's just tight there.
Just tight. Yeah, I don't feel it in my breath.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Well, let's just start some tapping here, and we'll just agree on what we're talking about here, or tapping for, is this awareness that Joey is with friends in a van, hundreds and hundreds of miles, if not 1,000, for and you don't know what's happening moment to moment with him. You just, he's out of touch, and what you do know is he is homeless. And that feels like fearful and anxious, and you're a bit angry about it as well. And it's, if you were, the rating is 7 or 8, but that's really personal, and it wouldn't be anybody else's 7 or 8. This is yours. It's just so we can maybe see what, if there's any change. Okay, so I'm just going to take these off. So that we pretty much agreed on what we're going for, right? So let's just start tapping here. This is what we call the eyebrow point, and it's on either side of the bridge of the nose on the curve. And we just tap lightly, and just noticing anything that's going on while you're just tapping now and thinking about Joy, homeless. One of the things that struck me with EFT is that we look at the negative. We're not going, oh, it'll be okay and everything's fine. We're just going, this is how scary it is. Right? Now we go to the side of the eye, and I have no control. There's nothing I can do. So that strikes me as a sense of powerlessness. Is that something you feel powerless about?
Oh, yes. Very much so.
Yeah. So this is an interesting thing for me, because a lot of times people get, now we'll go under the eye, just below the eye, on the bone there. A lot of times people get frustrated. And to me, frustration looks like anger, but it's actually powerlessness. When we're frustrated, nothing I do works. Nobody listens. You know, and as a golfer, frustration was near to my experience.
Wrapping that
because
club
those
around
things
the
go
tree.
wherever they. Yeah. So it helped me understand the difference between anger and frustration. So and fear. What's it like? You know, can you explain more about the fear?
Oh, God. There's just so many things that can go wrong. He's just so vulnerable. I just think I'm afraid of violence happening to him, or making, things getting worse. I'm afraid of him using even worse substances. My mind just thinks of all the things that I could be afraid of.
Right. So
like
this is where your
endless.
creativity comes
Yes.
in. Your skill set of being a creative artist and musician makes you. I mean, the thing is, if we're not smart enough, we're not going to have these, ideas. So maybe the saying "ignorance is bliss" might work, but it's when you're an intelligent person, it can work against you, and your mind can take over, and then as if it's the boss. But really, your mind is a tool. It isn't you. And this one is called Under the Arm, and It's just on the rib bones for people watching. It's not on the muscle front or back. It's just feel in there, and might feel a bit of an achy one. So I'm just going to show you these from here to here today. So let's go back up here. We're tapping. How are you doing? Are you noticing any changes at all?
It's helping me feel more present, and I'm pulling up some sadness when I'm doing this. It wasn't one of the emotions I first told you, but yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, this is what happens. You see how waves happen. Mm-hmm. You'd be quite happy, and then a thought triggers, a wave of emotion, and this is what we've done here is talking about other things. But then, so what's the sadness about?
Well, he's moved far away, and I don't know if and when I'll ever see him again. And right. I'm just sad that it's gotten to this point. I'm sad because I know he's struggling. It's
not the vision you had for his life.
No,
is it?
No.
So there's loss. A lot of times we think, grief is someone died or, a relationship fell apart. But there's well over 40 different causes of grief and loss. And you had a vision, the whole thing of the adoption and well, look what we've got and what we're going to do. And that's a loss. And you're entitled to feel sad about that. And for me, there are no bad emotions. Mm-hmm. Every emotion has information. Mm-hmm. And we should take that information and then let it go. So when your sadness comes up, there's a lot that's been lost. Mm-hmm. And if you get frustrated, you're not able to fix it, make it different, or do anything about it. Mm-hmm. So you just sort of like mind the emotion as it comes by and let the wave go, but take. Okay. Because one thing, it may not be something you're dealing with, but fear is a function of control. The more we have fear, the more we want to control things. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, when we control something, we shrink it. Mm-hmm. We make our lives smaller. Mm-hmm. Being able to be in control and manage everything would be so much more.
I tried that for a long time. It did not work.
Yeah. So one of the things I've been thinking about, maybe we'll talk after this is just about how children are being raised to be what their parents want them to be, not who they are. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then that poses a challenge because it's a control issue and a power issue.
What's getting pulled up now is pride in my son, which sounds really weird because he's homeless. But
So you are proud of him?
I'm proud of him because he moved out of his dad's house and he's making a life for himself. He made a shift, and he risked it. He knew he was going to be homeless. He went in this van knowing that that's where they were going to stay. And gosh, you got to hand it to him,
So you see how you went through a series of negative feelings and emotions. So what's it like in your body, being present, feeling proud of your son?
Yeah, it feels a lot better. I did feel sad, and I probably will always feel sad about this whole situation, but it transformed into, wow, my kid is doing a pretty amazing thing.
Yeah, and the last aria has not been sung, so we don't know, and we could play the what if it all turns to crap, or we could play the what if he makes it, what if he finds himself. So is it okay if we stop
Yeah.
tapping?
No,
And yeah,
that was great. It's
okay,
a great example. And
okay. And if you were to check inside and
mhm.
rate it on a 0 to 10 now, 0 being calm.
Yeah, it went down at least to like a 5, 6 in just those few minutes.
Okay, so
I feel my body's not as jiggly.
yeah.
I actually feel kind of sparkly. I don't know
Ah,
how to say that. Like not anxious, but like alive, like
ah.
mm, like vibrant. I don't know how to say that.
I think that's wonderful.
Hmm.
That's a great way to feel. I'm kind of feeling that way too because I just love this. This is what I would rather have these conversations than anything else. And so, if we're raising our children to find meaning
Hmm.
in what we tell them to and what school tells them to, and but we don't ask them what is meaningful to you.
And finding your own meaning. I know in the high school culture, uh, before Joey kind of fell off the rails, um, it was palpable for the parents that every kid needed to be in AP classes or some specialized something or other. You had to be college bound. I mean, there's like it was just a one-way track, and there's just so many other ways to do life. And these kids are all getting into huge debt because they, to pay for college. It's just
Yeah.
it doesn't work for everybody. And I really wish there was more acceptance of divergent paths. There's so many different ways kids can go, and I don't know how much of that helped Joey fall off the rails, but he certainly made a way for himself to not go
Yeah.
that regular path. But it's a real big stressor. And also in the psych hospitals that he's been in, many of the kids there are your top achievers that have had breakdowns.
Yeah. It's pressure, 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 and there's no driving force within.
Yeah.
If there's something that, this little girl who is in Australia, but she's learning and she's choosing something and she's learning it, and she's just like uh, amazing people where she was having difficulties before. So it's something that has meaning to her.
Hmm.
So if we can, I think for most of us, we get approval for doing what someone else wants us to do, and then we get criticized for being authentic.
Mm-hmm.
And then we question we have doubt about ourselves.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. And
and
the artist types often get, oh God, music is not a career, or, oh, come on, theater.
yeah, yeah,
You're going
yeah,
to be an
and
artist. What? Yeah. It's hard for parents in regular old jobs to understand the artist mind and the need to be creative and do their own thing.
well, and also homogenization. I mean, we have been in an educational system where it started in the industrial age revolution. All we needed you to do is to be able to read where not to put your fingers and lose them.
Yeah.
So we want you to come to work
Yeah.
and work 16 hours a day,
Yep.
but we don't want you to be intelligent. We don't want you to be a leader.
Mm-mm.
We got rich people for that.
Yeah. Right. Just memorize these
Uh,
facts, spit them back out, and you'll be good.
yeah.
Yeah.
So we have an escalated vision of that now. It's like you get the idea that if you have a degree, then you're, on your way. But
Yeah.
a good electrician is going to make as much as anybody.
Totally.
You may know
Yeah.
that they can.
My wife is an electrician, for those that don't know. I have a stinking master's degree, and she makes 3 times as much as I do. So there you go.
Yeah. So and less debt from getting the education.
Yeah. So when she was in trade school, her job put her through school. You work through trade school as an apprentice,
Yeah.
I mean, come on, that's an awesome way to go for people that like to use their hands, that like to do physical things. Like Joey, he's very kinesthetic. We often have talked to him about going to trade school or being a mechanic or something with his hands. He would just die if he had a desk job. Like literally, that would just kill him. So there's some people that just need something that's not a college path.
Well, every individual child is unique, and if we try to
Mm-hmm.
make them fit a mold, they're going to have some degree of resistance and
Mm-hmm.
resentment. So if you haven't, it would be good to start treating every child as a
Yeah.
unique being with a perspective and point of view, and find out what it
Yeah.
is, instead of going, "Oh
Mm.
no, that's crazy talk."
Yeah.
Yeah.
The parents' own fear comes out, and maybe maybe they wanted to do something and their parents wouldn't let them. I don't know how much of their own stuff is coming out, but if the parents are afraid or unfamiliar, like maybe they just have never known an artist or a whatever, and so
Mm.
they,
Well, what if a couple of artists have a child and wants to be a
oh my
lawyer? I mean, that'll be scary.
that would be really scary. Well, honey, if you need to go do law school,
Yeah. You'll be called to the bar at some point. You know that.
that's funny. Yeah, everyone is different. Everyone has their own path, and they'll get there one way or another, right? They might have to take a major detour, like my son is taking, or,
Hmm.
kids have different ways of rebelling or kind of falling apart, and then maybe they can
Exactly.
transform if they survive it anyway.
Um, I think people like Gabor Mate
Mm.
and people who are have really transformed the idea of addiction from an
Mm-hmm.
illness to a solution. It's a
Yes.
solution to a problem, and it gets away from the pain, and quite often it's linked to a
Yes.
trauma. But it doesn't have to
Mm-hmm.
be, because you could think you've done the best and there's no obvious trauma for your child, but there they are acting
Mm-hmm.
out. And I think that's partly because they want something to mean
Mm-hmm.
something. And what's left to them is to go out and try and feel alive
Yes.
by being naughty or risky
Yeah.
or taking a chance, because now, I feel alive when I do
Mm-hmm.
that. I do not feel alive when I'm doing algebra or,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. No, I think that's very valid. And after we talked a couple weeks ago, I talked to Joey about this. I said, Joey, Andy says that kids are struggling because they don't have meaning. Is that true? And he goes, oh, yeah, totally. He
Hmm.
said, yeah, me and my friends, we have no point in life. We have no idea what we're doing. We
Yeah,
have nothing going
right.
for us. And for crying out loud, pandemic, global warming, inflation. I mean, these kids right now, even forget their families, look in the world. What hope do they have? It's a major struggle.
You Yeah, I understand that, but the 10 richest men in the United Kingdom, or England, where I'm living, doubled
Yeah.
their wealth in the last 2 years. So, okay, yes, there's all these terrible things, but
Mm-hmm.
are we only seeing,
Mm.
remember when we panic? Um, and are we being, anxious about
Oh.
something rather than looking at opportunities? And um, what Joey has done is he's created a whole new set of opportunities, because there were some very
Mm-hmm.
powerful limitations,
Mm-hmm.
as I
Mm-hmm.
understand it, in where he was living before, naming no names. And so, what Joey has the opportunity to do now is to
Mm-hmm.
assess his
Mm-hmm.
decisions
Mm-hmm.
on how they feel to him, not as to
Yeah.
whether I need to rebel against it, which is, resisting something, or where does my life
Hmm.
and
Yeah, he has
the
an
point of
opportunity. He's
my
kind of
life
got a
come from.
clean slate right now. This is the good part about him moving to Oregon and being homeless. He gets to start literally from scratch. He has nothing. And he gets to decide every single piece that he's going to put into his life. So I'm kind of hoping that it becomes a turning point, but it might.
Well, I left home at almost
Mm-hmm.
18, and with 20 bucks, and I went to the Rocky Mountains and in Banff, and got a job as a dishwasher. Then they trained me as a cook, and then I trained as a chef, and then I was in the restaurant business for a
Yeah.
long time before I got into this. So.
Well, is there anything else you'd like to mention or say that we haven't touched on already?
Well, I just feel like a lot of times when I was working with the teenagers in care, they didn't just come from poor backgrounds. Some did, but you know, I felt like you had to do the best you can as a parent, and then be lucky as well. And but one other thing that you know, when a child is like in a situation where Joey has been, where there is nothing that means anything, and there's no purpose, and they're not driven, like a 15-year-old equestrian gets up in the morning at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, you know, grooms her horse and goes. So she is not going to be risking that. She's got something to do. But the criminal element who sell drugs need new buyers, and they are looking for people who are vulnerable.
Oh, definitely.
And they go, oh, you know, it's terrible. Oh, is that what your parents did? Oh, that's terrible. Here, try this. And then, oh, well, I can't give you any more. You'll have to find the money for it.
Yep. Oh, totally. I know that he got targeted. He was being bullied and was feeling so low. He found his other Asian kids that were also being bullied, and the rest is history. Yeah. Well,
you'd think after World War II we would have understood what we did to the Japanese who fought for America, and in Canada, their land was taken away, and but more, you know, in the U.S. as well. So it just seems almost insane that it's still happening.
I know. I was incredulous, and I didn't realize he was being bullied until after he tried to kill himself because of it. And then I felt bad that I didn't know, but I thought, who would bully someone for being Asian? I didn't know. I feel. I'm just disappointed in the human race sometimes. Like, really? Honestly? So I'm fighting that fight too, trying to make, you know, people aware that that's still happening.
One of my missions is to help people learn to listen.
Well, you are an amazing listener, and you've taught me so much about that and about just being more present and being available for all of the emotions and things that go on in this crazy life that we have.
Well, thank you. I think I've talked more than I normally do in an hour.
No, you did great. You had so much to offer. I'm so appreciative. How can people get a hold of you? You still do private sessions on Zoom, I assume? It's easy to do. We just did it on Zoom, so.
I work with I work right now with 7 time zones. West Coast, East Coast of North America, a couple of time zones in Australia, Japan, Germany, here on Zoom. One-to-one, I work with couples, and I don't look to work with teenagers, but the ones that want to work, I really enjoy, because what I've seen is it gives them the skills to deal with stress, performance anxiety, and they have them for the rest of their lives.
I think they're so important.
Which I envy.
Yeah, they have so much ahead of them, right? Well, so tappingthrough.com, is that the best way to get a hold of you?
Yeah, tappingthrough.com. Andy@tappingthrough.com is my email. Okay. And I'm on Facebook. That's EFT Andy Bryce.
Okay, I'll put all of that in the notes in case you didn't have a piece of paper while he was saying that. That's so great. Well, thank you again, Andy. Thank you for sharing your wealth of knowledge and your experience, and for giving me a little mini EFT today. That was really, really helpful. I'm going to be much calmer the rest of my day. So thank you all for listening. If you'd like to support Safe Home Podcast so we can maintain a commercial-free listening experience, please visit patreon.com/safehome. Also wanted to let you know that you can find all our episodes on YouTube, as well as all the podcast apps. And you can find all those links in our episode description, or search Safe Home Podcast in any of your favorite platforms. And please subscribe so you won't miss an episode. And most of all, please share this episode with anyone you know who could benefit from this knowledge and inspiration. Word of mouth is the best way to get Safe Home Podcast in more ears. So thank you for your support. And thanks again, Andy, for being on the pod. And Andy and I want to remind everyone to stay
safe.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure.